Hello everyone, I'm here with Benjamin Mincu. Hey Benny.
Hello there.
So we're here to wrap up xDay 2023. Nobody thought after Paris we can see something even bigger than that. But here we are in the Palace of Parliament here in Bucharest, and it's been a wild ride. It's been huge actually. How do you feel after the time spent inside the Palace of Parliament, with emphasis on Parliament, yeah? Top structure, top of the hill here in Bucharest?
It's awesome. It's been awesome from the start. Energy is extraordinary. The things we've unveiled are extraordinary. So it's really great. And I do think we've taken Paris to the next level with the Palace of Parliament.
Taking Paris to the next level. So not many people know that Bucharest was once upon a time, let's say, a smaller Paris. Now we have a bigger Paris here. But in comparison to xDay 1, let's say to xDay Paris, this time MultiverSX is much bigger. It's a much bigger ecosystem, many more things happening. What are the announcements you're most proud of that you've unveiled here?
I think there are quite a few. So each of the days we've pushed some very, very important updates, whether it's the mainnet upgrades that have been announced for the network during day one, or the different announcement for the startups that are building on the technology and have showcased significant progress from different angles, or the upgrades that we've showcased for xPORTAL, xFABRIC and xMoney. All of them have been extraordinary. We've also had, during day one, Sebastian Burduja, which is now the Minister of Energy, from the last time when he was the Minister of Digitalization. But it's been great to have him, and also the Lord McConnell, who was the first Minister of Scotland at some point. So quite a few things happening in the first day. Now we've also had the second day, and during the second day we've unveiled some major partnerships that we've been working on for now a long time, that we're super excited about, to sit with Google and announce a collaboration where they're part of the ecosystem. They're investing in startups from our ecosystem and providing them infrastructure, and also we have one-click deployment node within Google. That's extraordinary. Then we've of course announced Axelar, which is one of the most important interoperability partners in the ecosystem, entire blockchain space. We're already finalizing the integration with them, and today we've made that public. Then of course we had Deutsche Telekom, them becoming a validator on top of the MultiverSX network. Again, extraordinary. And then we also have Tencent Cloud and AWS. Again, Tencent Cloud, they've prepared a lot of focus for the ecosystem. They're unveiling some support for the startups that are building games, and especially some other things that we've not unveiled yet that are still in the works, but of course the deployment node for them as well. And with AWS, again, the conversation is not small. They've been doing quite a few things, having them here, and pushing for the different conversations that we're having has been extraordinarily exciting. Now, I'll also add a few other things. We've had a regulation panel going through the different important elements that are needed for companies to navigate or for individuals to navigate the crypto landscape. And in addition to that, we've also had the future of payments, the future of money with Osmosis, Sunny, the one of the founders.
I just seen on I just seen the guy on stage. He's huge.
Yes, he's awesome. With him was also Sanya, which is now VP at Circle Europe, and Martinho, who was just moderating the entire conversation. This is just the first 2 days. We still have some really awesome things that we're going to share tomorrow as well. But it has been extraordinary. At 12 midnight yesterday, we came back here to see the hackers in the hacker room, still alive, still pushing to prepare the applications and so forth. And then after midnight, we went to a validator meetup with the different people from the ecosystem. So the energy is absolutely extraordinary.
So I've been hearing you talk here about the next big steps for MultiversX. We got the technology, the mainnet is 3 times faster now. The ecosystem is now fast expanding, new products, new services, and all that. What are the next steps you're seeing for the next few years for you? Because every time you're pushing the team. Now I seen them not over-promising, they want to under-promise and over-deliver. Because we've seen let's say some promises that came into fruition and some have not. These are difficult, complicated times, but still the team has managed to over-deliver. What do you see happening? What do you want to be happening? What are you going to push them in the next few years?
There are a few directions, but I think what we have at xDay will be seen as this major milestone that has elevated the conversation for the network, ecosystem, partners we're having, and products that we're not only unveiling, but now have ready for people to get onboarded to. And I'm specifically excited about the different elements because on the network, things never stop. The upgrades never stop. We have some very, very fundamental technologies that will announce tomorrow around zero knowledge rollups that built on top of the MultiversX network are taking this to a completely different level. That's one thing. Then, of course, on the ecosystem side, we're always pushing with these partners to make more things or to bring in different partners with which we can reach other audiences or larger communities. Each of the partners that we brought here has actually a very, very large user base in their niche or in their entire, let's say, sector, because you cannot call Google a niche anymore. And then the third point, I think the progress that we've made with xPORTAL is the one that will open up and translate a lot of these things to the average simple user. Because most of the users at first want just some utility, like give me a card that works, that I can use on a daily basis. And then I will also take a look at everything else. And having this out now is really, really great. We've already seen a lot of users just onboarding, whitelisting, wanting to get this first step. Because on top of this, of course, we can showcase them everything we have. But once we got them in, then they'll have a lot of fun and we can build that. So this is just what we are discussing right now. There are many things related to blockchain, to AI, or to the metaverse or spatial computing part that we've not touched on about the future too much, but we wanted to touch on the progress that we've made that is concrete and very, very significant.
It's very important not to underestimate the effort that your team has put behind all of the announcements we've seen here. One of the most important, you've been talking about xPORTAL and the xCARD. I don't know if you heard about this, but just a few minutes ago, the largest exchange on the planet just announced they're discontinuing their Visa debit cards. At the same time, you're managing to launch a card that is supported in this local market. So this is not easy to do. Even the biggest companies struggle in these times, are, let's say, a little bit uncertain times. Everybody wants regulation, but the authorities are not moving fast enough. They are putting, let's say, roadblocks in front of this, and you are trying to, I don't know, go over them, go through them, go around them. How do you work with this?
Part of what we've been doing for xDay and many years before xDay is laying out the foundations. The acquisition of the companies that we've done in the past was not simple, and it was nothing that you could gain from immediately. It is only a very, very important and decisive step if you look to building something for a very long time. And it is precisely here that we'll see a shift. So all of the programs that rely on third-party providers for cards or financial solutions will probably be crippled because of either regulation pressure from the different states. And I think having our own infrastructure, having the conversations with the central bank and so forth, which are not simple conversations, and we always want to take with a very, very high degree of carefulness, is extraordinary and important. And I only think that from here we want to navigate things the same, because in the same way, especially on this financial ground, because here it's not about speed. Of course you want speed, but then if the next day you die, it doesn't help. So you want to have the foundations on which you can launch something, validate it, and then grow it without shifting sands beneath you.
From what I'm hearing from you is that you want to see new technologies, you want to see the hackers deploy new products, new services on top of the mainnet, but then building bridges from the old world into the new world. I've been hearing this over and over here, building bridges. What are those bridges? What they are meant to do exactly? Because the old world is functioning properly from where people look at it. Of course, there are some of us that are not so happy with it. What do you want to change? What are those bridges for?
I think there are many things, but the key point is whatever you're building, if you're an island in an ocean, separated from everything else, it might be that that island is the paradise. If you're alone, no one will benefit of that technology. Building the bridges just means we're opening the conversations in a thoughtful way with either the biggest regulators, the biggest decision makers that are in the government region, or the biggest companies, technology companies that are not only open but eager to explore and adopt these technologies at a completely different scale. The question for us is always, what is the most effective way to bringing the next wave of adoption? We've been discussing the idea of onboarding the next billion users for some time, and just because people have heard it for some time, at some point they lose the freshness of it or the importance of it. But everything that we've done up until this point has been toward that goal. Now, 3 years from our first conversation, when we sit with Google on a stage, when we sit with Tencent on a stage, when we sit with Deutsche Telekom, Google has 4 billion users. At this point, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore when we're discussing. It doesn't seem easy either. So it's still clear that there are obstacles. It's still clear that it will require effort. But what I'm saying is the opportunity for what's happening after the bridges are built is absolutely extraordinary. Everything can become a lot better. So I think as soon as we can show clearly to the people, and this is what we've been trying to do at xDay, what the future can look like. Everyone wants that type of future, and making it happen is why we're building the bridges. Without the bridges, we're just some people with dreams that are interesting that will not move to fruition. But with the progress we've made during these days, I think we've made some tremendous steps toward that goal.
It would have been crazy to say just 2 or 3 years ago that you can have your own alias, the X alias, like one click on Web3, deploy staking in the cloud, have Google as layer 0 and all that. It really sounds crazy just talking about it. And we've been talking about this. If you had all these technologies, all these announcements, all these functionalities on top of the network, like 3 years ago, the world would have been yours. But at this time, we are at an all-time low, let's say. But you were saying something very interesting when we were talking yesterday. If we do our jobs right, maybe the bear market ends tomorrow. It almost did. I don't know if you heard about it. It almost did today.
Yeah, I do think that progress is what will end all bear markets. If progress stops, we will only have bear markets. With really great progress, things can change from one day to another. So this is why we're pushing as hard as possible.
So the future sounds very interesting from what we're seeing here, from what we see from the developers, from the mainnet, from the partners, from everyone involved. There's actually, I cannot see a specific limit. The only important thing that I see is that the teams have had enough time to bring those products into fruition, like you said. So that was very well spent time. The future sounds good. The only limitations now are regulation, bridges, and mass adoption. How long does it take before we can have, let's say, I don't know, e-gold as a national currency?
That's something. not national currency, but we've definitely thought about some ways in which countries would have an incentive for themselves, whether defensive or just in order to protect different infrastructures, to take a stance and take a stake in the protocol. The further you think, the further you look at how the internet will expand, it's very plausible that before long you'll see probably different networks that are more focused on different regions of the world. Suppose that Europe wants to have a kind of more natively born blockchain that they want to support, or some other regions will, I'm sure the US or the Chinese will want to have theirs. So even if Europe at first doesn't want, by virtue of US and China doing that, you can immediately see that this could become a reality. The only question is of scale. So if we would tomorrow have 1 billion users, then the market caps of this entire ecosystem would be on the order of trillions. If it would be like that, then it's very clear that the governments would very likely want to take a stake in this expanding space, just because it's the smartest thing to do, especially when you see something so promising and so important to whatever you're doing as an economy. So again, coming to the progress, with every step we're doing as an adoption step, it seems the entire game can change. If in our first conversation I would have said that the ministers of Romania would come.
How many were there? At least 3 of them I've seen.
So we had the first one. We have Sebastian Burduja, the Minister of Energy. We were supposed to have the Minister of the Economy today, but he was called into a parliament meeting, and then the right hand of the Minister of Finance came, the Secretary of State, and then tomorrow we'll have the Minister of Digitalization. But even this, if I would have said this 3 years ago, it would have sounded very, very strange and ridiculous. But then with enough time, focus and effort, you can see all this not only happening, but can also see that things are not stopping here. This is an extraordinary step, but just a step on this trajectory and path that we're expanding on.
I like your optimism. Like I said on Twitter, X, your optimism is always superlative. But I'm gonna leave you with this. When I started talking about technology, I saw the smartphone as being the future. I don't know if you know, one in how many people had a smartphone in 2011?
1 in 7?
Less.
1 in 10?
Something like that.
Okay.
Could you imagine that not longer, like 13 years ago, 1 in 10 people had a smartphone. I couldn't find a person without a smartphone here today. So it's been 13 years, but we've all had smartphones for the past, 5, 6 years. At the beginning, it sounded crazy, but then the shift happened so fast.
Exactly. I also remember when the first iPhone was preparing to launch their app store. They had no applications. It was the first version, a few applications on their iPhone. People were not yet convinced that this was the future. It was a small room with a few tens of people, a few empty seats, and they were launching that. That's Apple. That's the company that is one of the, let's say, most highest valued company in the world. And it's very hard when you see them at the point they're right now to reimagine what it was when they made the first initial steps, how people looked at them, how everyone criticized them, how some thought it would never amount to anything. But then the progress adds up. And at some point it reaches a tipping point that then makes you flip everything and say, from the standpoint of criticizing everything, then you're extraordinarily excited, and then you cannot see it fail anymore. And I think this comes back to what we are trying to do. Focus on the progress, building the bridges, bringing the builders together, and just setting this engine in motion as fast as possible.
So we were supposed to be using Blackberries for a very long time in 2011 and all that. But there's also a saying that says, at first they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. What stage are you in?
I mean, it's hard to say, but
They're still fighting.
yeah, it's hard to say. Definitely a lot of fighting. But if I were to focus on something, is this idea of building, growing, and then accelerating. This has been our focus: building, growing, and accelerating. If we can refocus the conversation almost every day on this type of things, then soon enough you'll see some things, you'll see the detractors disappearing. We've had many people just questioning things. If we make progress, then interestingly enough, the detractors disappear at some point. So
Yeah, but you need healthy criticism because multiverse is not beyond reproach. Nothing's perfect. You still need a critical eye on the project and the company and everything happening all around it. So I welcome conversation with the community. If you have any questions about the project, drop them in, because I've seen you doing town hall meetings and all that, and people need to be interested, because if they are invested in a project, they need to ask the right questions. So it's important to have these conversations. It's important to have optimism, but never forget, these are unstable times, and what we're seeing is not, let's say, put into law. We are striving towards something new. We are not there yet.
yeah, and I would almost restate everything by saying everything, literally everything, is an experiment. Even Tesla is an experiment. Even SpaceX is an experiment. Even Apple is an experiment. Of course, it's much clearer that there's a probability of success there, but everything is an experiment. That's one. And then second, nothing is perfect in life. Like, if someone thinks that we've reached a point where anything is perfect, then it's going to be very disappointing. What we're trying to actually do is make things less bad, less, let's say, unsatisfying, and more interesting. Will we have, let's say, mistakes, challenges, and lessons along the way? 100%. There is no way without that. So acknowledging that and welcoming constructive feedback is the only way to move forward. Again, one step at a time. Maybe sometimes there are 5 things where we fail, where we learn something completely different that we did not know before. And this is part of the game. If it were simple, then we were all just sitting aside and relaxing and so forth. But unfortunately, it's not. I wish, I even stopped wishing for that type of conversation, because once you understand that the world works in a certain way, this type of unconstructive or unproductive wishes do not bring me closer. But yeah.
We were supposed to work remotely for the rest of our lives. Imagine that.
Yeah. I do think that, again, I do think things get, you can always frame that things get less bad with every passing day, or they improve. Is the point of perfection achievable at any point in time? No. Understanding that everything will feel, almost after you get one day, one week of the same thing, then you say, yeah, I'm done with this. Now I want something completely new. I'm not satisfied anymore.
So let's all just keep it anti-fragile as much as possible.
That's a good start.
Okay then. So thank you, Benjamin, for your time. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I hope you got some information. You got the vibe from xDay here in Bucharest, the second edition, the largest so far, the most powerful MultiverSX we ever made, to use a pun from the industry. I hope we'll catch up for the next one. But until then, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you for the next xDay here in Bucharest or anywhere else.
Probably somewhere else in the world.
The Pentagon.
Yeah, but we'll see how that works.
We need a bigger building.
Yeah, maybe Musk will build one just to give us a better target. But it will 100% be in a different country. We're still considering and thinking what that country will be, but the idea is to put another flag somewhere to build another bridge. So off we go.
So see you for the next one, and thank you everyone.